Appreciate everyone getting on. I know we've got a wide variety of business units. We originally put this out to the Salt Lake business unit. We felt it was important with the amount of utility strikes we were having and the high potential with them. So appreciate it being passed around to the other business units. We'll talk about kind of the excavation permitting and Procore, but the Procore stuff will be at the end because I know like McIlvain and a few of those groups aren't in Procore. So again, appreciate everyone joining. Super important topic. As you guys will see when we talk about the stats a little bit, it's happening way more often than it really needs to be. So we appreciate everyone joining. All right, so again, we're going to talk a little bit. Not going to go in depth on the excavation policy. We're really focused on the permitting, but a lot of the stuff in the permitting is in our excavation policy. I did send out the Big D's excavation policy to all the Salt Lake group. If anyone else needs it, reach out to your safety director for your area or myself, and we can get that out to you for sure. Okay. So why? Obviously, Big D says we have to, right? Why do we need to do excavation permits? Why do we have an excavation policy? Big D says we have to. But more importantly than that, why do we need to do the excavation permits? So out of all, we've had 40 utility strikes since January 1st, 2022. That means we're averaging about one a week. All right, and these are only the strikes we know about. How often do our subs hit their own stuff or another sub stuff, and between the two of them, they work it out and it never gets reported? So what we know is we've been hitting about one utility, underground utility a week. So out of all those, 9 of them are water, 17 are electrical, 5 are fiber, 8 of them are gas lines, and then there's one other. Out of all those 40, one of them had an excavation permit. And we'll talk a little bit about that one as we get into the utility locate in that. But if you look at those, 25 of the 40 are high potential, right? Electrical and gas. So we had 25 significant near misses where we were fortunate, we were lucky, we didn't hurt anyone. Yeah, we damaged some property and we had to repair it. We potentially affected some of our neighboring businesses and that type of stuff, which we can't do. We don't want to do. We don't want to ruin those types of relationships. But we had 25 opportunities that we nearly had, or we had the potential to seriously injure someone. And fortunately, we did it, right? Our law of averages is getting smaller for us as the year continues on. We continue down this trend. We're definitely going to get someone hurt seriously or fatally in these incidents. So it's important to us to make sure we're going through the process. We're making sure everyone's doing what they need to do, and we're giving them the best opportunity to get home every night. All right, so when do we need an excavation permit? Obviously, excavation and trenching. How about demolition? Right? We've had several strikes this year that were interior, going through demoing slabs, cutting through slabs, right? We had one that had a gas line a couple inches below the asphalt out on the parking area, and they're demoing the asphalt, and they tore into a gas line. Obviously, it's not supposed to be there, but it was. So we need to make sure it's not just excavation trenching, but what do we got going on? Is there a potential for us to strike an underground utility? How about stakes, concrete stakes, fence posts, right? Are we driving something into the ground? Do we know where our identified utilities are, existing stuff we've installed, temporary utilities? Do we know where they're at in relation to where we're driving our stakes? These are some of the areas that we need to be thinking about as we're going through the process. And we've got folks doing this type of work. Our concrete guys, subcontractors, any of those. Okay. So some of the things we can do, we're doing one of them today, training, right? Are we getting our folks trained, especially our site supervision, big D superintendents, assistant superintendents, PMs, any of that, right? Implementing and make sure we're using the excavation permits, understanding and reviewing our excavation policy, and understanding what our expectations are. We had a meeting last week with Rich Hazel, who is our business unit director, setting the expectation of what needs to happen on our projects. Hopefully that's happening in all of the business units, but what is the expectation for excavation work and excavation permits? And the expectation is they have to be done. And it doesn't take a ton of time. And we'll walk through one at the end and you'll see it doesn't take a ton of time. And the more we do them, the faster they become. Okay. Pre-construction meetings. How many of our job sites are having pre-construction meetings? Good pre-construction meetings, not out in the field, not a 5-minute, but you're going through not just the safety aspect, but your quality and your production and your schedule and contractual requirements and all that, right? This is a great time to start the discussion and start the process when it comes to high hazard work such as excavations or fall protection or whatever, right? But in those meetings, we can talk about what our expectations are for as-builds, what our expectations are as far as utility locates and excavation protection and our excavation permitting. We can also take that to train how the process works in Procore, what we're using on our site. Okay. Weekly excavation permits. They have to be done weekly. Okay. Maybe you might be on a different project that requires them more often than that, and that's great. But per our requirements and our policy, weekly. Okay. And they're by area. It's not, I've got a 15-acre site and I've got one excavation permit per company per week, right? It needs to be narrowed down to the work taking place. Updated and available as-built or red lines, right? For anything we've installed up to date, and it's great. You have a civil drawing or whatever on the wall, and they come in and they mark up, hey, we've installed these water, or we've installed these utility conduits or whatever, right? So folks know where the stuff's at. Where's our temp power? Do we have any temp sewer or water coming into our trailers, anything like that? Where are we putting those, and how are we identifying them? Okay, and then communication with utility locate companies, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But understanding how they're doing their process, what the process is, how they're identifying it, what they did on your specific site. We're going to talk about a utility strike with this incident where they thought they were tracer wire and they field measured. Okay, so we'll get into that in a few minutes. So this is the purpose of our excavation policy, taken right out of the policy. The purpose of this plan is to ensure that all trenches and excavations on site are compliant and safe for all employees and members of the public which are exposed. This plan also intends to set forth criteria to effectively excavate soil without coming in contact with known buried utilities. Now, as we go through this process, this isn't a category, right? This isn't a surefire. If I do this, I'm not going to hit a utility. We have unidentified stuff. We have missed marks, right? But are we going through the process? Are we doing everything in our power that we can do to ensure we're reducing that potential exposure? As I showed you on that one of those first slides, out of the 40, we did have one that had an excavation permit. Does that mean they did anything wrong? No. But after we reviewed it, were there some things we could do better? Absolutely, right? But they went through the process and were reducing that potential exposure. Okay. So I'm going fast. If you need me to slow down, I'll slow down for you. If you have questions, again, utilize the chat. Julianne, if you can just let me know if something pops up. Okay. So utility locate and one call. How often, right? Does it need to be refreshed? How are we doing the locating? Any of those types of things. Most of those locates are only good for 14 days, right? 14 days. So every 14 days, if you have a utility locate, you're working in some area, someone needs to come out and refresh that. And it's not us going out there with spray paint and marking the lines. It's not the sub going out and marking the line. If we had someone come out and do it, we need to make sure that they're coming out and doing it and refreshing it and updating the utility permit, right? Their dig number. Because if they hit something on an expired permit, that doesn't do us any good. It just means that, yeah, we marked it at one point, but how do we know nothing changed? So you're completely at fault, right? So we want to try to stay we need to stay current on our locates. If we are in an area that doesn't have locates, how are we doing it, right? We have some resources at the yard. We've got some wands. We've got some folks that know how to help locate that we can utilize. Just make sure we're going through the effort, right? Okay. Verify they're coming out. Do they check in at your office? Did the subcontractor see them? Have we for sure had them out on site? I had one just recently that everyone thought the utility company had come out and done their markings, and turns out they hadn't because the subcontractor never responded back. And the subcontractor was just going to go to work thinking that they had a valid permit. So take the time and make sure we know they're coming out. Make sure we understand how they're doing the markings, right? Are they doing tracer wire, or are they using as-built from the utility company, right? So I told you we had one with a permit, had an active utility locate. We didn't know that the tracer wire wasn't working on the gas line. And the utility locate guy didn't tell anyone that he did his measurement off an as-built. He missed by 5 feet. So our guys are outside that 2-foot variance where you have to hand dig a pothole thinking that the utility line is 5 feet away, and they end up striking a gas line, right? So how are they doing the marking? What are they using? And if they are doing field measurements, maybe we need to take a little more effort in ensuring that they're accurate, that we know that for sure we're not digging in an area that has a utility, okay? Some of the utility work requires on-site representation from the utility company. I know out in this area, depending on the size of the gas line and the pressure running through it, Dominion has to be on site when we're excavating around or under or over some of their lines. So we know what those are. And we worked with our local utilities to find out that I need to have someone out here during that work process. You don't want to get that fine. It's not a fun one, right? Okay. And then review your surroundings. Maybe utility locate comes out and says, hey, we don't have anything in here, but you see a power line that's got a line drop down and it goes underground. Where's it going? Right? We see some manhole covers or utility bolts out in our work area. Where are they? What direction are they headed? How do we find out that information? Do we have existing red lines, existing drawings? Do we need to get into the vault and take a look at direction? Those types of things, right? Don't just assume because locate comes out and says you're good to go, you're good to go. Look for other identifiers. If you have a transformer and we've got a temp panel within eyeshot, which way is it going? Are we feeding our temp panel from that transformer, or is the source coming from somewhere else? Right? So take a look at your surrounding. There's a lot we can learn from our surroundings. This includes in your demo area, right? We had two utility structures in neighboring rooms in concrete demo on an interior project. One of the rooms was an electrical, had transformers and all that stuff in there, and we cut through quite a few conduits. And then the next room over, we did the same thing, right? So what are my identifiers that should trigger, hey, I need to do a little more research. I need to do a little more digging to make sure I know where things are going. Okay? All right. Potholing, hand digging, and back truck. This is required for all identified utilities. Do I know where it's at? Right? Yep, it's marked. Great. I'm going to go ahead and start operating with my piece of equipment. I know it's there, and I know that state code says my gas line has to be so deep and my fiber got to be so deep. So I'm going to dig down to that point, and then I'm going to look for it. That's not acceptable. That's not OSHA approved, right? We start the process potholing, hand digging, back truck. We have to be able to identify where it's at. We might need to pothole, and I would say we need to pothole in multiple locations. Fiber optic strike not too long ago. Did a great job. They came in, they did some potholes. The problem was it was a pretty big span between the two potholes. So they potholed one end and another end, and both sides were 8 feet deep. So the assumption was that fiber optic line was an 8-foot depth all the way from point to point. Ended up changing elevation by 4 feet. So it was closer to 4 feet when they made contact with it, right? So in my work area, am I identifying where they're at before I just go to town, okay? Mechanical equipment, your excavators will love to tell you they're scratching, right? They're being gentle, right? They got out, they're going only a half inch at a time or an inch at a time, right? Every time I've seen a line that they told me they were scratching, there's no way they were scratching, right? They just blew right through that. So make sure mechanical equipment's not used in this process short of a back truck, right? Can we use the mechanical equipment to start digging around the utility once we've identified it? Absolutely, but we need to know where it is completely. Do I have both ends? If it's a duct bank, do I have both ends and elevations identified from the potholing? So I know exactly where it's at, where's my gas line, those types of things. Do I know for sure, have I 100% identified where it's at? Okay. The tolerance zone, that little drawing on the bottom right shows kind of the tolerance zone. This is an OSHA standard right here. So you have 24 inches on each side of your utility that has to be hand dug or back truck or pothole or whatever, right? So if I have a 20-inch duct bank, then I'm going 4 feet, almost 6 feet wide that has to be hand dug, okay? What I'm going to tell you with this, we go back to the utility locate, and if they're doing field measurements, do we need to expand it? Do we need to go further than 2 feet on each side? I think we need to go until we find it, right? Verify where it's at. We can't always just base it off of, hey, OSHA says this, right? We want to be better than that. OSHA's the bare minimum, right? Our culture is above that. So we want to make sure, hey, yeah, it says 2 feet, but you need to find that utility before you start potholing or before you start digging. And this is all, we're putting this all back on our subs. This is stuff that they're supposed to be doing. Our job as a GC is to make sure they're doing it. We verify, right? And you've all heard the phrase trust but verify, right? So we have good contractors. We have some that need help, right? So do our effort, do our due diligence to make sure everything's being done to prevent a potential strike. As-built and red lines, all right? Do we do them? Some, I see some on some job sites. We ask about some, yeah, and they send it in monthly to our PE, and our PE updates the drawings, right? I don't know, where's that, right? Is monthly sufficient? Maybe as a submittal, hey, here's our submittal requirement per the contract for red lines, but here's my drawing on the wall. Come in, every time you add in a new section, come in and let's mark it. In our weekly subcontractor meeting, update our drawing. Hey, what have you guys installed? Where are you going next, right? Something that's visible for everyone, accessible for everyone, so that they can go in and know if I have to dig at this point at grid line 9, I know that, hey, I've got installed electrical conduits, I've got a sewer line, so I need to make sure I'm going through the process, because we're not going to get utility locate out there in the middle of our project to find stuff that we've installed. So what are we doing to make sure that we've properly identified it, given the information for everyone to have, okay? So make sure we're providing that information. And I don't know enough about the Procore on the drawing side, but it's something worth looking into. Can we add a drawing? Can we take a civil drawing and copy it and make it, create a section in our drawings that says as built, live as built or whatever, and your trades can go in and update it, and it's available in Procore? Or do we need to go the old school and have a paper copy? And whatever works best for your project and the sophistication of your project and your subs, right? But if that's something that works well for you guys, I would see if it's something that we can do in Procore. Again, I'm not familiar with the drawing side of Procore that much, other than I can go find them, okay? All right, so excavation permit requirements. If your project is using Procore, they need to be completed in Procore. I say that because, again, we have some of our business units and some of our companies that aren't in Procore. If they are, they need to be completed in Procore. That's our project management tool. That's where everything we're doing should be. And the best method is your subs do it in Procore, not on a piece of paper and then they give it to you, because now you or someone on your team has to go in and put that in Procore. Have them do it, right? Show them, give them the access. A lot of it's fairly simple. Even if they do a paper copy, it's pretty easy to get that added into Procore where it needs to be for them, okay? It needs to be in conjunction with our think form. If you guys, everyone should be familiar with the think form, middle of the bottom middle, right? It asks you if you need any permits or any licenses. That should be, as I'm going through my think form, that should be my trigger. I'm doing an excavation. I need to be doing an excavation permit, right? I just spent the whole time doing a think form on excavation. I need to be doing an excavation permit. It adds a couple of minutes. If you haven't done it, it seriously only takes a couple of minutes to do. All right. In the permit, what are we doing, right? I'm digging a sewer line. That's not enough information. How deep am I going? What am I putting in there for protection? I'm putting in a 24-inch storm drain line. We're going to be anywhere from 6 to 10 feet deep. Once we hit 5 feet, we're going to install hate it when you lose your thought, right? We're going to install shoring systems, right? Or we're going to slope back. We're going to bench back, trench boxes. What are we doing? This isn't just saying, hey, I'm digging here. This is their plan specifically to what they're doing in that excavation, right? So we want to make sure we're identifying a decent description of work, and it doesn't have to be a novel. It can be, it's fairly simple, all right? Identification of our temp utilities, any installed utilities that we put in since we started on the project, and where are our existing utilities? Okay, do we have a utility locate number? And then this is important: approval signatures from Big D and, well, from the subcontractor and a Big D representative. Okay, preferred method is someone on our team, and some of your teams are a team of one on site. I get that. We get that, right? Preferred method is you go out and put some eyes on it. Yeah, this is the area. Yeah, they've identified everything. Yeah, they're doing what they need to do. And then you sign it. But the great thing about the Procore tool is, if I'm the subcontractor, and we're going to walk through this, so you see, I can put it in, I save it, and all of a sudden now Dan Hawley has access to the dig permit in his Procore. So Mr. Subcontractor calls him up, says, hey, I've completed the dig permit. We're ready to get started. Can you take a look at it and prove it? It's going to take me a while to get over. Let me take a look at the permit real quick. I open up the permit, read through it. It makes sense. We've got everything we need. I'm going to go ahead and sign it, right? Now we've done the signature with the wonders of technology, and we're staying within our guidelines. Again, the best method is go put some eyes on it. But I get, and I think everyone gets that you guys have a lot going on, and they're not always going to be able to get over there. Make the effort as best you can, and then if you can't, utilize that other method, right? Okay, and make sure the permit has a drawing showing where the utilities are. This can be a hand sketch. This can be a picture of whatever drawing you have on the wall that shows where they're at and what's existing. Okay, I've gone through a lot. I see there's some chats. Let me just look real quick. Looks like Scott has some of it. So if you have 200 feet of line, how often do you need to pothole? That's, I would say, is it a straight shot? Are there changes? Do we trace it? I would say every 50 feet, take a look at it. If you go every 50 feet and you see that the elevation is staying the same, you know, honestly, what's two more potholes in the grand scheme of things? If you hit a utility, you know what they can potentially cost to repair. So if it takes us an extra half hour to do a couple additional potholes to ensure that we've got the elevation right, that costs much less than if we strike a utility, especially if we impact anyone around us other than our job site, and or we get someone hurt, right? It's impactful on our job sites. We had a temp power line, underground power line that was struck last week. It shut half the project down for half a day, right? Because they lost all their interior lights, so no one can work. So those things are not things we think about until we're there. Now does the subcontractor come back and say, hey, because you guys lost power, I lost half a day. I need an adjustment on my schedule, or I need this or that, right? So there's a lot of things that come from that. So if you do add in a couple more, find the middle. It's a hard one to say, hey, you need to do one every 50 feet, because if you have a line that moves around a little bit, you probably need to do it more than 50 feet. So that's a great question though, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
The requirement on that on a 200-foot line is a minimum of every 50 feet. And that is point of termination, point of entry, but that is underneath the Common Ground Alliance every 50 feet.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. Chris asked, can they utilize their own excavation permit? It's similar to our think form, right? Contractually, they don't have to use our forms unless you're on the airport, right? They can, but take a look at their permit. Does it encompass everything we're looking for? Maybe it's more stringent than ours, which is great. But if it just says I'm here and here's my number, that's it, and that's it. I would say ours be the one being used. They can use theirs, but it still needs to be put into Procore, and we'll walk through that process in a minute. Best method is using ours because it's ease of putting into the system, and it allows you guys to sign off on it. But similar to our JHAs, right? Make sure that it meets what we're looking for, and then you guys can make that decision. If you have questions, send a copy over to us and we can take a look at it for sure and help you out with that. Okay. Back on this one. All right, so this is a sample think form excavation permit I put together. It might be hard to see. Well, I can send this stuff out, but we'll also walk through one. You'll see how fairly simple it is to do. Right. Some of the big things that get missed: the initialing that the think form's been completed, that we have a think form to go with this task. Right. Identifying what's going on, all that stuff, and then the description of work. In this one, I just put installing storm drain line from vault 3 to vault 5. Depth of excavation will be 6 to 10 feet. Trench boxes will be used when depth is greater than 5 feet. Okay. Now that's all the depth for the trench box. That's OSHA standard. But hey, again, let's go above and beyond. Do we have a high water table? Do we have some seriously unstable soil? Do we want to wait till 5 feet until we protect those that are working in these trenches? So those are things to look at, but just kept it simple with what the guidelines are. Okay. Over on the right column, temp utilities are identified. You know, hey, no temps in this area. I use drawing C3.0. No permanent utilities in the area. I use drawing C3.0. Do we need lockout, tag out in this situation? No, right? Because I'm just running running lines. I'm not making any connections. I don't have any live water or live electrical or in any of those types of things. Okay, what's my utility locate number, and what type of soil is this? Just so everyone is aware, in Utah, it's automatic Class C unless a competent person says otherwise. Work with our soil engineers. A lot of times our soil engineers will say, hey, we can move it to Class B. Work with your subcontractors as far as a competent person goes. But take a look at what they're putting, okay? And then equipment operator signature and Big D signature. Notice it says Big D superintendent and there's a Big D safety. Safety does not have to sign this unless you have safety on your job site full time, okay? It's just one of the representatives. And then a sample drawing that was marked on a project down in St. George.
Yeah, I'll be a pin where his trailer's at. Okay.
Hey, someone go ahead and mute. You'll see they kind of bubbled the area. This is where their footings are go. The red line over here, this was an identified power line that the utility locate came in. So doesn't have to be this detailed. I can come in with a highlighter. I'm working right here.
Yeah,
This,
I'll give you a call here.
right, but we've got a drawing that we can attach to the excavation permit. Okay. All right, so going to go through kind of step by step where to find these, and then we'll go into, I'll switch over to my iPad and we'll just go through the mobile version, because most of you guys will be working on the mobile version of how to fill one out. All right, so in your project, you're going to go to your Forms tool, right? And wherever you have that on your screen, Forms tool, and then after that, once you're in the Forms tool, the little plus up at the top, you'll want to tap on that. That's going to bring up a drop down of all the different quality, safety, inspections, any of that type of stuff that might be in there. Scroll down to excavation permit, and it'll be safety excavation permit, and then we're there. Okay, I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to switch over to my iPad real quick. And share my iPad screen, and then we'll just walk through one real quick, okay? Give me just a second. Need to share my screen first. Okay.
Looks good.
All right. So for me, I'm in the training platform. Obviously, it would be whatever job you're on. Okay. So we go to our forms. Got to move the picture. And then scrolling down, finding my safety excavation permit. And there it is. First thing I want to do when I go through, hit the little info, the little I with the circle. And then I would encourage them to put in, the company name and the date for your excavation permit, right? So my excavation company is called MadX, right? Take it how you want. I don't have an X, but it's funny. All right. And then we put the date. What is today? The 7th. Put that in, save it. Oh, let me go back. Sorry. So at this point, if you notice at the top, you have a camera and your attachments. So when you tap on the attachments, if you were to have a drawing that you marked up and you just take a picture of it, you can choose it from that attachment point. If I have a drawing on the wall and I want to go over and just take a snapshot of my drawing, right? I've got it. Now I've got the area that I'm going to be doing my excavation in. Marked it up. I save it. Okay. And now that's automatically attached to my permit. Okay, let me get out of my camera. So I've got my attachment. I've identified what I want to do, and don't know why it did that. MadX 10/7/22. Okay, so we'll save it. Now I'm going to zoom in. First thing I'm going to do, going through my permit. So I'm going to initial that I have a think form that's specific to the task taking place, right? So to populate there, requesting contractor, that's me. Then the date. And then the competent person. Oh, phone number. This is important in case we want to get a hold of them. You probably have their numbers, but I would encourage them just to do this because you might not be there that day. You might have someone covering for you, and they might not have all your trades contact info. So on-site contact person, who is that? This is going to be your operator. Any of those, we're going to put Corey because he deep down wants to operate a piece of equipment, right? We would put his phone number. I don't know off the top of my head. We'll use mine. Okay, and the Big D superintendent. Who are they reporting to? Who are they dealing with? Okay, we'll go Mr. Dan Osmond for this one. Again, whatever his number is. And then when am I beginning the work? So it'd be today. My start time. We'll go 10 o'clock, and we're going to end at 3:30. Now, location of work. Where am I working at? What am I doing? And this, again, this is where we want to bring our work sizes down, our work areas down. I don't want to be doing my whole site. So I'm going to be east side of pad between grid line 5 and 10. Whatever, right? And then is there a drawing that references that work area that shows the work I've got to put in? So maybe it's a mechanical or electrical 201. Okay. Now, description of work. This is, I showed you guys and kind of read what I put in. Installing electrical conduits from vault 4 to 6. Excavation depth 3 to 4 feet, and high water table will monitor for trench box need, something to that effect, right? So got that in, brief description of what we've got going on. Are there any temp utilities in the area? Mark it, and then not applicable, not a, NA, whatever they want to put in, right? But I'm checking that I did do the verification. The one thing I've noticed with this, the dates on this side, it wants them in proper form, so you got to put the whole year. And then what as built did I use? We used the civil 6, right? Same thing. How are we verifying? Trust but verify. And these guys should be trusting but verifying as well. Same with the temp utilities, not applicable in the area. And then same drawing. I use the civils. And obviously you guys might know the drawings much better than I do and thinking, what the heck is he thinking, right? Okay, but now, any lockout required? Yes, no. Again, if I have a potential for live water line in the area that could fill my excavation, am I in a vault with live electrical, live sewer manhole covers, or I'm doing a hot tap, those types of things, right? Do I need a lockout? Do I need to do any verification? For what we're doing, no. My utility locate number, and I forgot the date, so I'll go back and put it in. Verified by the competent person. Okay, soil type, we're going to say class B, determined by soil engineer. Okay. 20. All right. Now, who's the operator? Mr. Corey Hampton. And since he's taken an exam, I'm going to sign for him. Don't tell him. Okay. And now, at this point, Dan Osmond's not here. Not in the area where I'm getting ready to excavate, so I'm going to save it. And now I can just quickly look. If I'm Mr. Dan Osmond, I can search the excavation permit. I can see that MADX has created one for this morning. I can go in. It'll bring it up for me. And we all love the speed of Procore. We just have to be patient. I can go to my menu and I want to edit it. Now Dan would go in, do his review, make sure everything's good to go. He could go in and look. Yep, we've got a drawing attached. Okay. And then he's going to go in and do the signature. So again, Mr. Dan Osmond's on PTO. So I'm going to sign for him, which is why I'm pick the two guys that aren't here. So signature for date it. And guess what? I'm done. Right? This isn't, you guys shouldn't be filling this out. Let me stop sharing this screen. Okay. You guys shouldn't be filling these out unless it's one of our guys doing the work. Our job is to make sure it's being done. Our job is to make sure that the information is being properly collected, properly documented. One of the conversations I had with one of our recent utility strikes was, hey, everyone knew it was there, right? At one point it was marked. Markings might have faded. This is a temp utility line. Everyone knew it was there, but we have no documentation to say that everyone knew it was there, right? So do we have an excavation permit that says, hey, this utility is here? Do we have meeting minutes from our subcontractor meeting where we're talking about a work area and say, hey, as you go in, remember, we've got this here, this here, this here. Let's make sure we get an excavation permit. We have none of that stuff. So did it really happen? Yeah, it really happened between you guys. But when it comes to fault and court, and unfortunately we have to look at it that way, did it really happen? And the answer is no, because no one put it down anywhere. No one did any documentation. No one did their due diligence to make sure that we were properly identifying everything before we started the work. Okay? So this stuff is here to protect you. You don't have to do it, right? This is not your responsibility to fill these permits out for your subcontractors. They have to do it. And is it going to be a little slower at the beginning? Absolutely. We're going to take a few minutes. We're going to work with them. If you want one of our team, any of our team to come out and I'll say a subcontractor meeting is a great time, right? We can come out and take 10 minutes of your subcontractor meeting and do a quick training on how to properly fill these out in Procore or what the expectation is. Get your safety folks involved to help with this process. Okay. Let me get back to, that's really, for me, what I have. Okay. I wanted to give our general superintendents for Salt Lake a moment if they wanted to add anything in. Again, folks, this started out as a Salt Lake meeting, but we definitely appreciate everyone joining. Hopefully you got some information out of it, and hopefully it triggered some questions or a reevaluation thought process that maybe they need to be doing this or doing that on my project. So Chris, Mr. Remkes, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce the importance of this to protect ourselves, our company, and our livelihood. Taking the time up front to educate our subs how to fill them out, and taking that little bit of time every day, the first of the week, to make sure they're getting done. It's really not that hard. I'd also like to say that this has come across as a requirement, not a request. So that's what we're going to be enforcing on the GS side to make sure we can help you out. I know a lot of large projects have safety on site daily. They can help with that. There are a lot of guys that are on projects by themselves and wear multiple hats. We are here to help you. Make the phone call. We'll be there. We're there to help. Thanks for all your efforts, and good meeting, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Paco?
Let me reinforce what you guys just said. Excellent meeting. It is a company policy. One of the things, guys, is do spend the time if you can, that extra 5 minutes when those guys are putting forth the effort. And some of these trades are, this is fairly new to them. We've got some trades out there, some excavation companies or electricians or whatever they are that don't understand this, or this is new to them. Explain it to them. If they're going to take the time to want to learn it, take the time to put the boots on the ground with them over there and make sure that they are seeing anything and everything. That extra set of eyes, that potholing. What is their process if they are doing it? What are they potholing for? Some guys that go over there with a bar and just start banging away at the ground, and if you got a gas line or you got some power there, even with your hand excavations, have that conversation with them about even that hand digging. You get some kid, they're going to put the cheapest guy on it. They're going to make sure he just goes over there. He's just going to say, you know what, go find that. And what method is he going to use? He's not going to have the equipment, but he might have a big old bar and just start banging away at the ground and still put himself in harm's way or worse. It's company policy. We got to do this to protect ourselves. And we've been lucky so far. Nobody got hurt over the last strikes that we've had. But go that extra mile, put that extra effort into it. And, like Chris said, pick up the phone. If you're having questions, it's all about doing anything and everything we can to identify this and help the trades out. So good job, guys. Thanks.
Jason, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm driving, so hopefully everybody can hear me. No, great job, Brian. I really appreciate it. I would suggest that we, whoever's on the call, go into the test project within Procore if you are operating in Procore, and just practice filling one of those out, kind of following the steps that Brian outlined. And probably the best way for you to explain it is to actually go through it and fill it out yourself. And basically, it's kind of like writing stuff down. You remember stuff when you write it down versus just trying to commit it to memory just by, running through a couple of times in your head. But go through, kind of just fill a test one out, or even on your own project, you just mark it as a test. But essentially, I agree with Brian, is cover it in your sub meetings. Just the other day up at Juniper, Sean and I were looking at it, and you can go into your drawing sets and create a as-built drawing and just have everybody go in and update that on a weekly basis. But not only that, they can pull that into that excavation permit, so everybody has it. Electricians, landscapers, excavation company, what have you, whomever, they have access to it via the Procore drawing sets. So if you, as a superintendent, don't know how to do that, again, get educated on how to do it through Procore. Going through the function, going through the way to work it out, how to do it, and trying to investigate it on your own. You'll be a lot better off kind of fighting your way through it if it is a fight. Or I find it's relatively easy, but people learn things in a different way. So please take the time to go through it, educate yourselves, and then, like they said, it's a requirement. I sent out the APP for our company, basically the accident prevention plan. It's covered in there as well. Same with like toolbox talks, what have you. So let's everybody step up our game. If you're superintendent, granted, if you're a single guy or if you've got multiple team members out there, your job requirements are all the same, right? We manage time, basically schedule, finances, safety, and quality. You got the 4 pillars there, so that's what we're all responsible for. I appreciate everything everybody does, so keep up the good work.
Appreciate it, guys. Anyone else have anything you want to add? Leon or Rich, Hazel?
I would just finish with saying thanks to everybody for putting this together. Let's use the data. It was important to get in front of everybody. Safety is the top pillar of our culture, and culture is the 117 folks that are on this call. That's where it starts and stops. It's not a tagline. It's about human beings. We ask a lot of all of you. Everyone is swamped. Everyone's busy. Please put this at the very tippy top of what you're doing every day. It's the most important thing. Thank you very much. Y'all enjoy your weekend. Be very safe.
Thanks. Just a reminder, guys, if you're in a group, please get a sign-in sheet. We want to get this put into your training records. So we need to know who's in your group so we can get that taken care of. Again, we appreciate everyone jumping on.
Hey, Brian?
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple of comments. So as we talk about the excavation permit, one thing also to consider is in the verbiage with the word file that comes with it, there's also some ticklers in there that should be contemplated, like where shutoffs are, overhead utility lines, just if there's a traffic control requirement related to it. So there's a few, the permit that we went through is pretty comprehensive, but there's some other things to contemplate given the circumstance that you might be encountering in the field. And then I'd just like to underscore the criticality of the as-builts. We have temporary utilities that we install and permanent utilities, and it's pretty embarrassing to hit those because we put them in. And so taking the time to make sure that our as-builts are right is half the problem. And once those are right and current, then it's pretty straightforward to incorporate those details into the project. And this process is the result of lessons learned. It's the result of best practices, and ultimately Jack Livingood expects us to do it. So we appreciate everybody's help, it's a lot. We got a lot going on all the time, and appreciate the focus that everybody has to incorporate this into the process. So thank you.
Thanks. Again, thank you everyone for jumping on. Appreciate it. If you have questions, you need help, reach out to your safety department, reach out to your general suits or your senior suits. Let us help you out. Again, like Jason said, we don't expect you guys to do all this stuff on your own. Let us help you out and train you and teach you and help you manage things. So appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see everyone out in the field.